Twilight Princess is, to me, fundamentally a game about home. What it is to have a home, what it is to be disconnected from the home one loves, what it is to venture out into the vast world beyond seeking a new home. Mary Douglas, the great anthropologist of the mid-20th century, talks a lot about ritual and rite. What makes a place familiar as opposed to strange? What characterizes a place as feeling like home, having the characteristic of home? What are the rituals and ceremonies that give it that? For her, it is something tied to specific objects, specific customs, specific actions enacted in the world, not just beliefs, not just, say, a common history, but common practices that are done by people. People share a world. People share a little world, perhaps, but a world nonetheless. This is by far my favorite Link throughout all the Legend of Zeldas, because he is the one who feels the most to me like he comes from somewhere real. He is rooted in a specific culture, in a specific place, in relationships with specific people. Now, obviously all the links come from somewhere. The Ocarina of Time Link, the hero of time, comes from Kokiri Village. Wind Waker Link has a sister and a grandma. Skyward Sword Link has a whole group of people that he knows pretty well. And he even has a kind of sort of romance with Zelda. But Twilight Princess is a bit different because it is more specific. What do we know about Ocarina of Time Link, for instance, growing up? He is the only kid who doesn't have a fairy, and we know that he is secretly a Hylian, and he will grow up, unlike the other Kokiri, who stay as children forever. Peter Pan-like. But who is he? What do people think of him? What is his status within the community? We don't really know any of these questions. Skyward Sword creates a very vivid world in terms of Skyloft, and I love how that world looks. Skyward Sword has an absolutely beautiful art style, but we don't really know much about Link other than the fact that he's kind of a bit lazy, a bit awkward, a bit airheaded in a sense. He doesn't really take himself as seriously as he should. His relationships with the other people in his little community other than Zelda don't really feel particularly grounded or well-defined. Skyward Sword, far better than any game, demonstrates Link as a particular person with a particular life that is going in a particular direction until it is disrupted by the events of the story. We see he kind of has a mentor, Russell, in the village, who serves as a kind of surrogate father to him. And Russell is a good swordsman and a good person. He's awaiting the arrival of his kid. It's not that all these characters in Orden Village, where Link grows up, are very well defined, but they feel real. There's a tactility to them, and they all have some closeness with Link. They all think of Link in a certain way. He means things to people. He is the hero to the little kids in the village. particularly Colin, who, despite being dismissed as a weakling, tries very hard to be like him. He has a kind of sort of girlfriend in Ilya, and it is very easy to see the two of them ending up together if the events of this game had not happened. It's an idyllic little community that is completely disrupted by the events of the game. And that's where Midna comes in. She also doesn't really have a home. She had a particular role there in her society, in the Twilight, but she was denied that role. Zant usurped her and fundamentally took over the realm, reduced the people of that realm into caricatures of themselves, and turned Midna into the imp form that we see her in for most of the game. Midna is very easy to initially think of as a villain. She is not one of these bland helper characters like we saw with Navi before or Fi after. And I actually don't hate Fi as much as most people, but Midna is on a different level. In both her imp form and her true form, she very much looks like a character that in a more stereotypical good versus evil setting would be on the side of the villains. But she's not. She's mischievous, she's a bit selfish, but she deeply cares for her people, and over time she comes to greatly care for the people of Hyrule as well. She starts just by using Link, manipulating him when he turns into a wolf, when the Twilight covers his village there, but she grows to deeply care for him as he grows to deeply care for her. This is a sense of two people who are fundamentally uprooted from their communities, uprooted from their routines and conventions that they are used to, being thrown into a world they don't understand and having to try to learn to live with it and live with each other in that world. And this is ultimately, in the game, not just something that is acceptable, but something that is ultimately good and beneficial for these people. It broadens their perspectives. Link can no longer just be the ordinary farm boy living in a little community. Midna can no longer be the person living in her own realm and dismissing the people of Hyrule. They both need to learn to grow, live with each other. Midna arguably has more character flaws than Link at the start and more room to grow, but their journeys are fundamentally one and the same. They're journeys of broadening, of expanding the mind, of getting to know different worlds, different ways of thinking, different experiences that were not hitherto understood. And this, for Twilight Princess, has a moral effect. It makes people more empathetic. It provides windows into the passions and sufferings of others. The journey from the small town out into the wider society, what the great 20th century critic Lionel Trilling called the young man from the provinces story, is an enduring one for a reason. At its best, it neither venerates nor disdains the small town in reference to the larger outside world, but simply asserts that there is more to know than was known before, that in a complicated modern society, the rather simple, predictable routines of ordinary life aren't good enough. That is the essence of the story, and that is the essence of the relationship between Midna and Link. Midna is ultimately much more vulnerable than she at first appears. And the real turning point comes after the end of the third dungeon when Midna is deeply injured and Wolf Link has to carry her on his back to Hyrule Castle in what I have always viewed as one of the most moving scenes in the entire franchise, and certainly the most moving in Twilight Princess. These are two people who fundamentally grow as individuals together. Their journeys are tied together. Link, who is not a bad person by any means at the start, and he always tries to do what is right and good, but he has to learn, and learn through experience, that Midna, this being from the Twilight, who was using him at first and was manipulative, is actually only this decent, caring, considerate person. She was never as cynical as she had pretended to be at first, and as she genuinely grows as a person throughout, he grows to deeply understand her and care for her, to know the other in a far deeper and more empathetic way than he did at the start. And the same is true in reverse. Midna views the light world and people like Link in a similar way, as this kind of menace, this kind of force that doesn't care about her or her people, which is kind of justified considering that her people were all banished to their world for the crimes of their ancestors many, many generations ago. Midna ultimately learns to open her heart to Link and sincerely care about him. Now, this relationship does not have to be romantic necessarily, but it's very clear that on Midna's side it very much is. She has these deep, cavernous feelings for Link. And because of the general arc of the story, this feels natural and organic. And I think this is why a lot of people do not like Ilia as a character, and certainly as a love interest for Link. Because she is the embodiment of the world that he is leaving behind. She is fine. There's nothing wrong with her, but she is rather anodyne, pleasant, a bit bland. She is an archetype, the girl from the hero's hometown that he's just always kind of been with. And in a non-heroic, non-adventurous story would, without even really thinking too much about it, fall in love with, marry, have kids with, and so on. But after the events of this game, Link is a different person. He is not this farm boy anymore. He cannot simply go back to his old home and his old community. After spending all of this time with Midna, spiky, wild, chaotic, deeply complex and ambivalent, and ultimately capable of true depths of emotion, passion, sorrow, lament that Ilia could not really understand. Going back to Ilia for Link can only feel like a regression. There's nothing wrong with this character necessarily, but she is fundamentally emblematic of the world the hero needs to move beyond. As for Midna, she is the one who makes the decision to stop herself from being with Link. And this is a deeply heartbreaking decision. There are all these justifications one could make about why she's breaking the mirror at the end. That she wants to keep her people safe, she does not fully trust the light world. But That's all they are, justifications, rationalizations. It's very clear at the ending that Zelda and Link both want Midna to stay. That they want this connection between the world of Twilight and Hyrule. Midna, perhaps on a deeper level than both of them, wants that too. She absolutely adores Link, and the thought of not being with him is deeply heartbreaking to her. And yet she chooses to destroy the mirror anyway. Yes, she says, as long as the mirror is extant, they could meet again. So she does everything in her power to make sure that doesn't happen. And ultimately, I think it is not in spite of her feelings for Link, but because of them. She loves him too much. And she really does not want to face that and the implications of that. Especially for someone who is not the most comfortable with these deep, earnest feelings of emotion. She ultimately decides that, in a very real and non-cliche way, she cares too much about Link to be with him. And so she destroys the mirror and kind of locks herself into her world and denies herself what she really wants the most. And this is deeply tragic and melancholy. I don't think the game wants you to feel good about this decision that she makes. There are certain positive aspects of it, but it is fundamentally choosing isolation and alienation in a game that is very much about connection and reaching out and growing through learning from other people. It doesn't feel right, perhaps, for Midna to not be with Link. For her, or for Link to go back to Ilia. Whatever happens, there is a deep melancholy to the ending of this game. That is deeply tragic, and yet at the same time there's a very profound yearning to it. There's a reason people keep thinking so much about this ending and about the two of them, because they didn't have to be apart, but they are because of Midna's choice. It's a gorgeous, beautiful game and a very contemplative and fascinating way to end it. So thank you all for watching. If you liked what you saw today, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Donate to my Patreon if you can, and you want to see more videos just like this one before anyone else. I've just been thinking a lot about Twilight Princess recently, so I decided to make this video. I think it's pretty clear that Midna's decisions for breaking the mirror are much more personal than they are political or practical. Take care, everyone. Adios, comrades.